23 badly injured men trapped 354 feet below the surface in a freezing, pitch-black Russian nuclear submarine, the same one once deemed indestructible. 99 crew members, 3,500 tons of cutting-edge technology that failed when it mattered most, and a deadly torpedo that could have turned against its own crew. These are just two of the three harrowing submarine disasters we'll uncover today. How did the 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭, the 𝐼RPA, and the USS Thresher, each praised for their strength, advanced technology, and stellar performance, meet such catastrophic fates? What impossible choices did their crews face deep below the surface? And why did it take days for some rescue teams to arrive? Stay tuned and find out as the cases we share today get progressively worse. Let's start with the least horrifying. April 1963, the USS Thresher, the most advanced submarine in the US Navy, begins its descent for a routine deep dive test with 129 of the Navy's finest on board. Before she entered the yard in late 1962, the Thresher had been to her test depth about 40 times. Now she follows standard procedure, diving and pausing every 100 feet to check its systems. Suddenly, garbled radio chatter. Skylark, the submarine rescue ship present at that test, waits anxiously on the surface, straining to understand. Minor difficulties. Positive up angle. Attempting to blow. Inside, alarms blare. The crew races against time, but nothing has prepared them for this. The hull groans under crushing pressure, every weld, every seal at its breaking point. Minutes pass, no contact. Then, a final chilling transmission, exceeding test depth. Those final words from the Thresher echoed in the minds of investigators for years to come. But what if they weren't the submarine's last message? Imagine this. You're aboard the Thresher as it begins its descent. Everything seems routine, until a small flaw in the submarine's intricate piping system sets off a disastrous chain reaction. As the sub dives deeper, moisture inside the high-pressure air flasks freezes, clogging critical valves. What seems like a minor issue turns deadly when the crew needs to blow the ballast tanks, their only way to surface. But that's not all. The electrical panels meant to keep the submarine running smoothly were not waterproof. As flooding starts, they short-circuit, leaving the sub powerless. But here's the cruel twist. Everything they tried to do only made things worse. With water seeping in and systems failing, the reactor shuts down. In a cruel twist of fate, the reactor control officer that day isn't the usual expert, but a trainee. Following standard procedures, he can't restart the reactor quickly enough to save the sub. Thresher keeps sinking. And then, in a fraction of a second, Thresher is crushed by the ocean's pressure. No slow cinematic sinking, the Thresher's hull violently collapses inward, destroying the submarine and everyone inside in an instant. The 129 lives lost changed submarine safety forever. It led to SubSafe, a program that revolutionized submarine safety. Since its launch, only one sub has been lost, and it wasn't SubSafe certified. Compare that to 16 lost before 1963. Now let's turn to a case even worse than the first. November 8, 2008, the 𝐟𝐹A, a brand new Russian attack submarine, heads out for sea trials in the Peter the Great Gulf. 208 people on board. But here's the kicker. Only 81 were actual military personnel. The rest? Engineers who built this thing, a bunch of civilians on a nuclear-powered sub. What could possibly go wrong? At first, everything seemed fine. Systems tests, checks, the usual. But sometimes when things feel too perfect, you just know something's about to go sideways. All right, picture this. You're deep underwater, engines roaring, navigation systems flashing, emergency drills firing off. Intense, right? But here's where it gets personal. If you were one of the 127 civilian engineers on board, you had zero survival training. And then something happened. The sub had a high-tech fire suppression system, LOCK, basically an automatic fire extinguisher built specifically for submarines. Unlike traditional fire systems that use water or foam, LOCK smothered fires by pushing out oxygen, saving the tech, but making it instantly deadly for anyone caught without gear. The gas worked fast. Once the system activated, the crew had 30 to 60 seconds to get their protective gear on. Can you even imagine the panic? And here's where it gets insane. The access codes, the ones that allowed human intervention, were supposed to be locked away. But no, they were written right on the units. And then, 8:30 p.m. Most of the crew was asleep, but Dmitry Grobov was awake. He cranked the temperature readings of the system from 30 degrees Celsius to 78 degrees Celsius. That single change fooled the system into detecting a fire. It immediately requested activation, and Grobov approved it. In seconds, the gas was released. Military personnel and civilian engineers panicked. In high doses, halon doesn't just knock you out, it paralyzes, and within moments, the oxygen is ripped from your lungs. Even for those who managed to grab a breathing kit, many of them failed. It was Russia's worst submarine disaster since the sinking of Kursk. 20 died, 41 were injured. So was it boredom? Retired naval officers were skeptical. The fire suppression system required multiple confirmations to activate. One guy couldn't have triggered it alone. In the end, no one was held accountable, because if the lock system's automatic mode malfunctioned, this disaster may have been inevitable. And now, today's last and the worst submarine accident in history. The Kursk, a powerhouse Oscar II class sub, was celebrated for its strength, tech, and top-tier crew. But no one saw the disaster coming. On the morning of August 12th, Kursk prepared for a routine naval exercise. Right before noon at 11:29 a.m., a violent explosion shook the Kursk. 2 minutes later, a second blast, 250 times stronger, equal to 2 to 3 tons of TNT. Submarine 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐤 detected the explosion, but the captain assumed that it was just part of the naval exercise of the day and didn't suspect anything. Meanwhile, on the Kursk, a faulty torpedo had detonated, killing everyone in the torpedo and control rooms. Just over 2 minutes later, another set of explosions destroyed compartment 4 and killed everyone in the next 3 compartments. Miraculously, the nuclear reactors shut down safely to prevent a nuclear disaster. This is one of the few positive things that happened amidst the tragedy. 23 crew members managed to find their way to the 9th compartment, the last section of the submarine that also had the escape hatch. Here's the first impossible dilemma. Using the escape trunk meant risking decompression sickness and likely death on the way up. Not using it meant waiting in the depths, hoping for survival. As the water slowly filled the compartment, the pressure built. To add to these dilemmas with the escape hatch, the survivors faced a trifecta of deadly threats. Carbon dioxide levels were rising, poisoning the air with every breath. The temperature dropped rapidly as Arctic waters seeped through the hull. And most critically, their oxygen was running out. While the crew of the Kursk fought for survival in the depths, the Russian Navy, oblivious to the disaster, carried on with their exercises for hours. 6 crucial hours were lost, and once they realized that something was wrong, well, for 4 agonizing days, the Russian Navy made repeated, unsuccessful attempts to attach 4 different diving bells and submersibles to the escape hatch of the submarine. The world watched in growing horror as the rescue effort stumbled. International offers of help poured in from the UK, Norway, and the US. But in a baffling decision, President Vladimir Putin initially refused all assistance. Pride and secrecy, it seemed, were more important than saving lives. A stunning 7 days after the accident, British and Norwegian divers finally opened a hatch to the escape trunk in the boat's flooded 9th compartment. And then the harsh reality sank in. One of the superoxide cartridges for rebreathers had been dropped, and in contact with the oily water, it had triggered yet another explosion and flash fire. The investigation showed that some men had temporarily survived this fire by plunging underwater, but the flash fire consumed all remaining oxygen. The men who survived the initial explosion ultimately died of anoxia, the complete loss of oxygen in their tissues. 3 submarines, hundreds of lives lost, advanced technology, elite crews, and rigorous training. None of it was enough. The Thresher showed how a single overlooked flaw could bring down the most advanced submarine of its time. The 𝐼RPA revealed the deadly cost of human error or system failure. And the Kursk. It was a tragedy of missed opportunities, failed leadership, and fatal delays. Yet each disaster left a mark. The Thresher led to SubSafe, revolutionizing submarine safety. The 𝐟𝐸 exposed critical gaps in training and system design. And the 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭, a brutal reminder that secrecy and pride can be just as deadly as the ocean itself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit that thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories of dark, strange, and mysterious events. Because sometimes, the truth is more chilling than fiction.